everyone. I'm Ashley McManus, Director of Marketing at Affectiva. Welcome to Affectiva Asks, a human-centric AI podcast where each episode we will interview a thought leader doing cutting-edge work in the AI space. A little bit about us. Affectiva is the pioneer of in-cabin sensing AI, software that can detect nuanced human emotions, complex cognitive states, behaviors, activities, and interactions within next-generation vehicles. Today's episode features Imat-uve CEO Hans-Peter Schlegelmilch, as well as software engineer Dennis Boghoff. Imat-uve is an innovative, independent development and engineering company based in Germany. Their primary business is conducting safety and certification testing of materials for OEMs and Tier 1s for everything that goes inside a vehicle, like fabric or plastic. The company also has an innovation team who develops new product concepts. One such concept that they are working on is around fragrance diffusing, using a person's emotion and cognitive state to trigger the scent. For example, if you're tired, diffusing peppermint could make you more alert. So let's listen in on what Imat-uve believes our combined technologies mean for the future of mobility. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. With me calling in from Germany, I have Hans-Peter Schlegelmilch, CEO of Imat-uve. Hans, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, thank you too. Nice. Pleasure to meet you today and be your guest in the Affectiva podcast. Really
Absolutely.
Curious and hopefully also a good experience.
Yeah. Okay. So to start, tell us about your background. How has your career path taken you to Imat-uve?
My original background is I'm a chemist. I've studied complete normal chemistry in Duisburg here in Germany, and my special field, my special profession inside the chemistry has been the instrumental analytical chemistry. So that has somehow guided me to material investigations, material detection, trace components in materials, chemical components. And in the origin, also my PhD theme, for example, was to investigate, to determine metal and heavy metals in slag, steel and copper slags. We invented in our R&D team new detection system, new analytical test system to have a real or fast track metal detection and metal determination. Also, that means to determine the content of different metal oxides for the quality control, for the running quality control in steel work laboratories. While preparing my PhD, I started together with my father to found and to build up our company, Imat. And that was the idea was to be a service test lab for materials. So, and from that point, I developed it more and more into automotive direction. So that's the starting point was that you maybe know that in Europe, the field of material emissions, material VOC, have got a big impact on the comfort feeling of the car, interior of the indoor air of the car, as well as also in other indoor situations. But the car industry was somehow on a transforming point at the end of the 80s of the last century. And in the beginning, it was then 1994, 95, 96 when we started to take care also for building up test methods and to get deeper as a service a test provider for car manufacturers as well as for their supply chain, for Tier 1, Tier 2 suppliers. That was then the point how we how I came in touch with the automotive industry somehow. Today, we are more or less in touch with all global acting car manufacturers, as well as also local acting car manufacturers, also with the upcoming OEMs in the different regions of the world. Yeah.
Awesome. So as CEO, what is your primary focus today at Imat-uve?
This is strongly influenced by the way I have already described. The theme of emissions of odor is one main aspect of taking somehow an organic sense of the product. So that means today we take care a lot of how materials, how surfaces, how the complete components of a car, especially in the interior, are influencing how they appeal to the final customers. Yeah? The questions, what colors, what textures, what grain, what kind of grain is appealing, what kind of customers in what region, younger, elder, and somehow a little bit we are also market investigation company meanwhile, because we give also consultancy to producers of parts as well as for car manufacturers. Mm-hmm. So, and the odor is somehow the non-visible part of the car design. Yeah. If you want to see it like this, a lot of people don't see the value, but odor is as much important, comparable to that what you can see and what you can touch and what you can hear. So, and this altogether creates a synesthetic design, as we call it, and we think that the odor is an increasing part of this orchestra of human senses.
So cool. So, and I know you spoke to it a little bit. For those who are unfamiliar with Imat-uve and its applications within vehicles, can you briefly explain, what your offerings are, maybe who your target customers are, and how you work with them?
It's quite interesting because basically Imat is an engineering today, not only a lab. We developed a company, and that is also my role as CEO to transform the company from a test lab in the origin, in the beginning, to an engineering and consulting company of that what Imat is today. So that means reflecting the issue of all this, what is influencing the human senses and the preference of what car is a better value maybe as another car compared to another car. We test materials in a regular way. That means we do material and part and complete car testing for car manufacturers as well as for their suppliers on one hand. But meanwhile, we are also working in the design, in the creation of design, and also in design consultancy. That leads to the way that we have developed also somehow a system that spans odor into the car interior, but in the way that not you, but the car will decide by recognition of the driver's current state, what is the right odor, what's the right smell, the right fragrance somehow to influence the driver's behavior. So in that way, on one hand, we investigate malodors and the reasons, the chemical reasons coming out maybe from technical materials. Those chemical substances, those are responsible for creating a bad or inconvenient odor, inconvenient smell. So, and engineers are working to reduce those reasons and sources for inconvenient smell. And on the other hand, other engineers are working on components and on mechanisms how to add convenient odor to this synesthetic orchestra, what I already described.
So, Affectiva is working in the automotive space to provide in-cabin sensing solutions to car companies. And one of our use cases is personalization and adapting the interior of the vehicle. You have made steps towards this with the in-car kind of fragrance capabilities you had mentioned.
Yes.
How would you say emotion detection technology like Affectiva's fits into your overall solution?
When we talk about how to create a car fragrancing system, so when we don't want to establish a system, what you can compare with the music, the end of the 20 years ago, when you had to change somehow the disc, and when you wanted to change the music. So that means what we want to have is that the car is recognizing the emotional state of the people inside the car, of the passengers, especially of the car driver. And that means that you must create a chain. Yeah, it's not only the substance, the smell, what you would like to spend into the car interior. It is also the point that you have to create a detector, a sensor that is able to recognize and also to identify, as a recognition and identifying the mood, the emotional state. And then to have the actor who is able, that is the actor system, that is able to bend the right substance to modify it to that mood, what the driver has got in that moment. So, and that means what we are doing is to create this complete chain, and the Affectiva system is for us a very important step for the recognition system. So, and that is the reason why we are also cooperating between Affectiva and Imat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, based on your expertise, what would you say our combined technologies mean for the future of mobility?
I think it is an important point, yeah, to create adjusted odors fitting to the individual mood of the car driver and other passengers. That is a kind of freedom that nobody really uses today. And we must be really very careful, because when we go to China, Chinese car manufacturers in this moment see the possibility by this system to cover malodors, to cover a bad odor, because they think when the good smell, the fragrance is coming into the air, so then the passengers of the car will not think about the reasons and the substances those are responsible for the origin bad odor. So, but this is something what we don't like, because it pretends that the air is completely okay, but it isn't okay. So therefore, we must be very careful from the marketing aspect that we that we don't take compromises in that way. That means the system can run only in those cases where we have done all actions that the car interior is protected against dangerous and substances. Those are responsible for bad odor, and that means we need a car interior with emission optimized polymer parts. And when you have reached this target, then you can add on the car fragrancing system. So that is a really big issue for us, to convince all those companies who would like to join this, that they do their homework before they start improving the synesthetic design by adding also a car fragrancing system. That is very important.
Absolutely. So, if you had one takeaway for the audience listening today, maybe advice for car manufacturers as they're thinking about personalization, what would you like to tell them?
A good takeaway is really to use also much more possibilities for individual appealing of car drivers, of passengers, of final customers. Mm-hmm. And I see that the individualization and the possibilities, those are given, for example, also by IT combined sensors and actors, open so many possibilities for ramping up the success, for example, also for cars in the market, mm-hmm. also in between under difficult conditions we currently have because of different effects. It could be also in the shared economy for the future, also an interesting point, and too less people have been thought about the possibilities, and that would be my takeaway. Yeah? And we have different workshops per year to get in contact with different groups of engineers, designers, marketeers, to give them advice and also to give them deeper knowledge how the systems can work, and how they influence the human perception.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah. So maybe that's one of them, but I was going to ask for our listeners, can you let them know where they can go to learn more, or any other call to action you have for them?
Yeah. Ask Affectiva together with Imat and make the world a little bit better.
Oh, that's great. Also, one last question we ask all of our guests: if your car could do one thing in the future to make your life a little easier, what would it be?
It would be able to talk with me. I could instruct the car to take over tasks I don't want to take over any longer for myself. And I think that would be my secret dream.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I have for you today. It was such a pleasure speaking with you, Hans. Thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we've heard from the CEO, we thought it would be great to hear from someone in the weeds of our technology integration. So with me today, also calling in from Germany, I have Dennis Boghoff, software engineer at Imat-uve. Dennis, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today.
No problem. Thank you that I can be here.
Awesome. Okay. So to start, tell us about your background. What has your primary focus been at Imat-uve today?
All right. So I can tell you a little bit about my background. At the moment, I study business informatics, and I'm in my 5th semester here in Mönchengladbach. Before that, I had a vocational education as an IT specialist for application development. And after that, I had to work 3 years as a software developer. I started working with Imat right about 2 years ago. So that was right since the beginning of my studies. The first year of my studies, I had in full-time, but after that, I changed to a part-time study with Imat so that I can implement the topics I learned in university into a real job environment. I'm part of the software engineering team, like you said, and because of my field of study, I just don't only code, but I only participate in project management, business intelligence, and also requirements engineering for one of Imat's big projects for the digital transformation.
Great. So how would you say emotion detection technology like Affectiva fits into solutions like Imat-uve's, and what kind of value has Affectiva brought to the organization?
So I would say that Affectiva brought a huge value to Imat. So without Affectiva, we would have to deal with developing and training an AI on an AI system, as well as emotion recognition, which is a very big field of research and development. We at Imat, we have many experts when it comes to odor, automotive interior and testing, but when it comes to AI, we are just getting started in that area. And with Affectiva, we can focus in this car fragrancing project on our strengths. So that would be designing a fragrance, implementing the system in the automotive interior, or developing an interface for the recognition and the system that sprays the fragrance in the car. So I would say in conclusion, with Affectiva, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to waste our resources by developing our own software, but we can rely on a product that is already well established on the market and has everything we need. And by that, we can work on developing a solution for car fragrancing as best as we can.
Awesome. Can you speak to the personalization possibilities in pairing in-car fragrances with emotion AI?
Yeah. So We know by now that because of scientific research, that the neuroanatomical circuitry of our sense of smell is fundamentally different from that of all other senses. The primary region for olfactory perception is very closely linked to the brain areas that are responsible for processing emotional stimuli, as well as to those that store memory traces.
Nice. And I'm just curious, are there any underlying science or observations you've seen in mapping certain fragrances to certain emotions, or does it depend on the person?
That's a really interesting question. So I would say if you look at individuals, I think most of us or most people have experienced that a certain smell can make them feel in a special way and trigger a memory. So, for example, there can be sitting about a campfire with friends and suddenly getting a warm, comforting sensation and getting taken back into childhood, because that's something that we used to do with our granddad when we were younger. Or for others, it could be a certain perfume that was used by a loved one, or even just the smell of a warm, freshly baked apple pie. And there are many, many examples of those. And those triggering of memory is very tight, bound to the individual.
Yeah.
But if we look at linking emotions in fragrances, not only for the individual, but for a broader group, we have a different picture. So there are multiple studies on the subject, and by now it's broadly accepted that the impact of smelling a certain fragrance can be scientifically measured. So, for example, the heart rate increases, the blood pressure changes, or even the muscle tension grows. There are also studies that show that a fragrance can be very powerful to counteract stress. But to say that a fragrance directly influences a specific emotion like happiness, sadness, or even anger, that's a really hard claim to make. There are companies in the industry that claim exactly that, but we at Imat, with our odor experts, we cannot support that claim. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of promising research in the field. And I think that with better technology and research methods, it could be the case that we have a better understanding and knowledge about the human sense of smell, that we can find a solution. But what we can say today is not that that a fragrance can directly influence an emotion, but that we have the knowledge that the fragrance influences the well-being of a person. So this is because the human sense of smell strongly interacts with the parts of the brain where emotions and memories are processed. And by that, a smell can trigger a strong association. That would mean that, for example, if you would smell coffee, the smelling of the coffee doesn't make you more awake, but it awakens an association that reminds you of a situation. And by that, you can feel more awake.
Interesting. That's so cool. Okay. So based on your expertise, what does combining these types of technologies mean for the future of mobility?
I would say I strongly believe that facial and emotion recognition has a very big and promising future, especially in the automotive industry. And I think we should use that technology to improve the driving behavior in a better and positive way. A huge factor for that, of course, is road safety. So that means preventing microsleep or even seeing if the driver is distracted from the road. At the moment, there were already existing such systems that alert the driver if he's getting tired. And I think it's really important that as long as we don't have level 4 or 5 autonomous driving, the interaction with a human should be minimal to none. Because if the driver has to interact with too many systems, he can't focus on driving, and that would be bad for the road safety. And if you look at odor or fragrancing, there are also fragrancing systems from OEMs like BMW or Mercedes in the market, but those systems require a manual interaction to change the fragrances. They are like little solid blocks that give the scent, and and they also don't fit the current emotional state of the driver. So they only have one certain smell that doesn't change. And with car fragrancing, we have two key areas, I would say, that we want to improve. So that's road safety and the well-being of the driver. And while I would say well-being is more of a luxury aspect, it can also be optimized to make the driving more pleasant. And it can also be used as a selling point for higher priced luxury cars. And as a conclusion, I would say that there's still research to be done in the area, but we want to develop the most subtle way to influence the driver's well-being. And I think that car fragrancing will help with that.
All right, great. Well, that is all I have for you today. It's always great to speak with a hands-on kind of technical person. So thank you so much, Dennis, for your time today.
Thank you too, Ashley.
It was such a great opportunity to be able to speak with both CEO and software engineer to get the broader vision of the technology and into the science behind how it works. I love how Hans-Peter is concerned with the ethics around his company's technology possibilities, such as covering up bad odors that could be dangerous, and also hearing the science behind how the brain processes smell and associates it with certain emotions from Dennis was super fascinating. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Affectiva's Human-Centric AI podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes. We are also on social media, so please reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Affectiva to share any feedback you have on the show and weigh in on the discussion using hashtag AffectivaAsks. Don't forget to rate us and comment with your feedback to help make the podcast more discoverable for others. Until next time, thanks for listening.